Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome. And for anybody that wants to come in and join the fun and frivolity, we're glad to have you. And, I just thought I'm wearing this T-shirt. It says, I love it when they call me Big Papa. And it's not because I'm the president. It's not because I have the power to do executive orders. It's because I feel powerful because my grandkids bought it for me. And I also wanted to have a contrast for what you're going to see with Jack Sent in Yellow. He's going to the prom today. And so you're going to see him, and he is way overdressed for us, or I guess we're way underdressed. So here's the deal. Please use the Q&A button asking us questions. We're going to do our best to wing it and give our best opinion. And Adam is on as well. And I didn't get any preloaded questions for today. This is the first time ever. So, evidently this executive order is a non-event, or everybody's just kind of waiting and seeing. So, Adam, do you have any thoughts before we tip it over to Jack?
Yeah, sure. Probably the two relevant things that came out of the executive orders, just trying to think about what happened last week. Two relevant things that came out of the executive orders that I think would be pertinent to our client base is that, the payroll tax deferral, before any business owner gets super excited about that, what that really means is that the employee can elect to defer paying in their withholding taxes. So you still got to pay them. And then they get to elect to keep the money. So in other words, you wouldn't be withholding it. You would just be giving it direct to the employee. As with all things, it also directs the Treasury to look at means at forgiving this permanently, because right now it would be considered a short-term loan to the employee effectively. So that's not really relief for business owners in terms of an additional source of funding available. It's really relief at the employee level, which is fine, but it's not something that is applicable for business owners. The other one is the evictions on the rent. Again, nothing definitive there in terms of, okay, well, what happens next, other than, hey, let's just explore some avenues to not evict people. I won't comment on the the unemployment piece, but not, as I said, not huge changes. I think the only other thing that I've seen this week that is consistent with last week and seems to be consistent going forward is that while banks are making available, some banks are making available the ability to go ahead and apply for forgiveness. The general consensus is, but don't do it yet. And the reason for that, really is twofold. From the bank's perspective, they are waiting for some more guidance, but what they're really, 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 really waiting on, and this actually, since I've been forwarded it by, several different people now, I think it's okay to go ahead and share it. This one came from Bank of America, so it's not surprising, in terms of the volume, but, Bank of America's position was, well, you darn skippy, we're going to wait. And the reason we're going to wait is because a pretty significant volume of our loans were below that $150,000 threshold. So if you're telling me I don't got to mess with those, that is a big labor savings. So what are you supposed to do if you're Bank of America? Turn on the application for forgiveness for people above 150 and below so I totally get their position in terms of waiting. I that seems to have caused some angst within our client base. Hey, why is our bank being silent on it? And I just want to do a reminder for everybody that, look, there's no gold medal for applying early. We still don't know the disposition of the deductibility of the expenses that you use the money for. So there's just not, there's not a huge incentive to go early. And generally speaking, things have not gotten worse when it comes to guidance. It's only gotten better. And again, if you just play this out from an election standpoint, even if the entire administration all legislative branch and the executive branch turns over, they're not inaugurated until January. So, and they typically don't go retroactive. So what it would require to get worse is somehow all the branches of government turn over except for the Supreme Court, since that's nominated and approved by Congress. And then somehow the lame ducks decide, you know what, we're going to burn this place down on the way out the door and piss off everybody. I just don't see that that's a reality. So I just would counsel patience for everybody, in terms of, there's nothing. I don't think there's any downside to waiting at this point.
Jack, any thoughts on school you've been reading too?
Sure. So a couple of administrative things. First of all, I thought it was dress up day at work. So I don't know why you guys people dressed up. The reality is
well, that's just what we told you, Jack.
Okay. Thank you for the prank. I had a conference, a call. I was participating in a panel earlier this morning, and it was an international call, and it was kind of cool because there are people all around the world, but it goes to just a side commentary about different cultures and their expectations. I mean, there are cultures that expect their service professionals to be dressed in a certain way. I did take off my suit coat for you guys, and and they equate, I think, your level of skill and professionalism by the way you dress, so all the initial impressions. So that's what all that was about. I know you guys would never hold me to that standard that equates the way I do things to the way I dress, but just in case, here you go.
Yeah. Gary and I are trying to decide if you just insulted us or not.
We're not smart enough to figure that out. I'm not.
Good. I use enough.
I don't know. I don't know whether I should feel complimented or insulted for that, Jack.
I know you guys can dress the part, so no worries.
Yeah.
I guess what I'd like to do is, and I've said this before, I don't like to read stuff, but I found a really good synopsis of what happened a couple of days ago with respect to the component parts of the executive order. And so if you'll give me a minute, I'm just going to read this. So, on August 8th, President Trump issued an executive order and 3 memoranda to his cabinet and executive agency heads. So that's executive orders that provide or extend the COVID-19 relief to individuals and businesses. 1 memorandum was issued to the Secretary of Labor, the Secretary of Homeland Security, and the Administrator of FEMA, and provides for supplemental unemployment payments to certain eligible claimants up to $400 per week until the earlier of when the $25 billion allocated by the President is depleted, or December 6, 2020. Now, as a side commentary, that money theoretically and practically will probably get depleted much sooner than December 6th, just mathematically. The second memorandum was issued to the Secretary of Treasury, temporarily defers the collection of payment of certain payroll taxes as Adam has discussed, paid between September 1st, 2020 and December 31st, 2020. And the only additional commentary on that, it's a deferral. And I dare say that it now has turned kind of the payroll tax, the employee side of it, kind of like into a self-employment tax, meaning it's self-reporting and self-paying down the road is my understanding, but I'm not sure if that, it seems like that is kind of the natural end result of that. The third memorandum issued to the Secretary of Education extends student loan payment deferment and reductions of student loan interest to 0 until the end of the year. And then the housing executive order directs various cabinet executive agency heads to find means of limiting evictions and foreclosures. And I would say out of all of those, that probably is the weakest directive, or probably the least amount of exertion of power that the president could exert. Now, obviously, maybe not so obvious, but I think obviously this is, as soon as it was, even before it was put out there, is going to be subject to a lot of lawsuits, a lot of interpretation. In the first instance, does he have the ability to do all these things? What is the extent of his powers? Those kind of things. But it's for right or wrong. I think it was just a way to say, look, let's get this going and moving forward. And then you have, and there's even Republican dissent about some of this, not just Democratic. And again, I don't speak to politics, but so not everybody is rowing in the same direction. But I think it's an indication, if nothing else, of the frustration that business owners, employees, and everyone is feeling with kind of the lack of, so you have lack of progress on one side hitting you, and then you have restrictions hitting you. I mean, it's just day after day we hear about, very sadly, how college football is going to be delayed. I'm waiting to hear what happens with the ACC because they haven't made a decision yet. But being a Tar Heel, and I say that kind of half jokingly because I know we're not known for our football program, but rather basketball. But we got Mac Brown back, which is awesome. So it's it is frustrating because it seems like we want to move forward in all aspects of our lives. And as I said, I think last week, that we're at the precipice of the next natural thing, which is kids going back to school, and what is that going to look like? And so all these things have an impact on everything that is happening. And I think that I don't know how that plays out with respect to getting things done and how things look. Is it sufficient amount of pressure to continue to throw money out there for our benefit? But I go back to what many people have said, both sides of the aisle, that economists, lawyers, CPAs are saying, is that understand that we're borrowing against ourselves and borrowing against our children too, which is easy to do, but if you think about the long-term impacts of that on our personal finances, on businesses and things like that, it's just, there's just so many moving pieces. That's a long way of saying that the three of us on this call and our respective organizations understand what you guys are going through. We're going through the same thing, and so hang in there, and we'll see where it goes.
All right. Well, we've got a few questions that have come in. So again, thanks for everybody that's on the call. Really appreciate it. Hopefully we'll make it worth your time. But if you do have questions, hit us on the Q&A. And if you want to harass us or tell Jack that you like the color of his tie, hit him on the chat. So the first question is, if our sales haven't gone back to normal, could that mean that we're eligible for the safe harbor FTE count? Adam, what do you think?
Yeah, so yes, but there's not really been any guidance in terms of, the safe harbor scenario where, my FTE count is not what it was because I don't need it. And the reason I don't need it was because of the pandemic. The guidance so far just talks about, hey, it was something related to some sort of restriction that the government put in place that caused a disruption. But what, I think everybody has a thread that could potentially weave through. So I'll give you an example from a client discussion that I had yesterday. It's a staffing company that staffs flight attendants. So, so was there an order from Roy Cooper that said you cannot fly? No, there absolutely wasn't. Was there an order from Roy Cooper that said, hey, we're on phase 2, we still need to be careful, we still need to be restrictive? Did major companies that fly impose travel restrictions on their teams to keep them safe? Absolutely. So of course this company's revenues are down. Is there a direct order related to it? No, but is it directly related to the pandemic? You dang right it is. So that's the kind of stuff that, I think that there is a direct correlation they haven't really come out with guidance in terms of what that direct correlation needs to look like. So the advice I told this client, which same that I give to anybody, really is, look, don't try to make this exception if revenues are same or better, but you're crying poor mouth, you can't hire people back. All you're really doing in that case is doing a one-time cost structure do-over. But if your revenues are down, you probably got a pretty good case.
All right, good. This next one has to do with this.
Jack did not shake his head on that, so it does not sound like I said anything illegal.
I was shaking silently. You can't see. I'm a little dark today because of the lighting. But, yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, next question. If employees decide to take the tax deferral, do employers still have to pay their share, or it's being deferred as well? Do all employees have to participate, or is it elective and can be on an individual basis?
Yeah, so this just came out on Friday. Here's what I think I understand. Jack, help me out if I got this wrong. So let's talk about the employee part of it. The employee part of it would be specific to the employee. So since it's a deferral, I may decide not to do it, and Gary may decide to do it. It's an individual employee selection up to $100,000, which is how they got the $4,000 number that they got. In terms of the employer portion, the memoranda is silent on that. However, you would fall back to the original CARES Act, which said that employers could defer the employer portion of payroll taxes until the end of the year, with 50% of it due at the end of the year and then 50% of it due the following year. So the employer deferral already exists. Now, you can't do that on an employee by employee basis. I don't even know logistically how you do that. So it's kind of an all or nothing type deal. But on the employee side, yeah, it's really specific to the employee. So obviously all the questions are, well, like, how do I get Gary's, how do I find out from Gary that that's something that he wants to do? And what's my obligation and all that? So off to you, Jack.
Yeah, I would say that correct. I mean, you need to kind of look at it. The employer part of it is already established. The employee side of it is the employee has to choose, but there's also, and I'm sure you have, and in fact, Gary shared with us a little bit earlier, just a little while ago, about there are professional groups, just like there are on the SBA side. I've reported to you that there's SBA watchdog groups that and on behalf of the banks and others that are asking these questions, the what ifs, interpret. And so I assume that there are CPA accountant and other organizations that are asking these questions of the IRS, saying, what did you mean by this and that? And there likely has to be a structure that has to be consistent and objective. So basically you're saying, okay, we are taking the responsibility of you, employer, of collecting, basically removing money from this person's paycheck and holding it and remitting it to the U.S. Treasury. We are now taking that responsibility and putting it on the employee's hands, but there has to be clear decisions as to what that is, what is going to happen, because by the employee telling first of all, there has to be a way for the employer to notify the employees of this option, right? So, people who are following this, employers who are following this, great, they know, but there has to be a way to get the message out there. Then the message has to go to employees who may not know this is an option, but the message has to be very clear as to, employee, if you choose this option, here's how it works. And by the way, at this point, understand that this is not free money. This is, because imagine, and I'll analogize to a similar phenomenon, which I think is funny, not funny for the person that this happened, or the people that this happens to, but that all of a sudden your paycheck is increased, right? Because you don't have this money that's been taken out. And understand the money that we're talking about is Social Security, Medicare, those funds, right? That and so there's another even issue that we're not even discussing, which is we're already underfunded. And when is that going to run out in our generation, our kids' generation? When is that going to happen? But now you're saying we're not even going to put more money into there, at least for the time being. And you have people who are crossing their fingers, both employers who didn't have to pay their portion, saying, I hope that that becomes forgiveness and not a deferral. And then you have employees kind of in the same boat now saying, okay, maybe they'll say, hey, you can keep the money, you don't have to pay it back. So, but that's a dangerous position to be in, because, you know, an individual who, I mean, is an individual going to be disciplined and say, well, okay, I understand at some point in 2021, I'm going to get this tax bill of this money that I've used for living expenses. And now the government's saying, pay it because you collected it. We've now taken this trustee relationship, because that's essentially what an employer is in this relationship, a trustee of the federal government that is holding this money that's supposed to give it to the federal government. And so that's why, and I've said this before, you look at the back end of the Charlotte Business Journal, and I look back there to make sure none of my clients are in trouble, but there's a section that is federal liens. And if you look, a lot of times relates back to the non-payment of payroll taxes by an employer, meaning money has been pulled out of employees' paychecks and has somehow not gotten paid to the federal government, and the government saying, give us the money and we're going to put a lien on you. And so that's a lot of responsibility put onto an employee. So there's going to, I think, have to be a process implemented all the way through, full notification, that the employees understand that this weight, yes, it's a benefit, but it comes with a lot of strings, including payback. Now, having said that, what is the reality? Is there a way, and I think this also is dependent upon the election, about what happens with respect to being able to maybe treat this as a grant, as free money, as forgiven money. I mean, maybe that becomes part of the next version of the stimulus package, who knows? But I just want to be clear that, you know, the way I look at this is I think that people need to understand that at this point, it's a tax break, but it's a deferral, not a forgiveness of money that you end up in your paycheck. It's not a raise, essentially.
Yeah, the challenge with the forgiveness piece is that then it just becomes effectively another stimulus check, because if I elected to not do it, but Gary did, how's that fair? So, I mean, hey, it'll get interesting, as we always say.
Yes.
All right, next question is up from my friend Tim. It's good to see your name up here. Here's the question. When qualifying by FTE count, it seems like the guidance leads me to believe that we could have our FTE count up to the number on December 30th and we would comply. Before, it seemed like we had to have the number during the entire testing period. Can you clarify when the FTE count will pass the test?
3 exceptions. All right, so I'm not going to get into the specifics of, hey, what date range are you using for average FTEs, but the only way that you pass free and clear, no exception applies, is if your average FTE count over the test period is the same as your application period. If that does not agree, you are asking to qualify under one of 3 exceptions. Maybe it's 4. Jack will fact check me. I can see that he's got it up now. Exception number 1. I let all the people go. This is the exception we're talking about now. Exception number 1 is I had to let some people go, but business got better. Now I've hired them all back. So even though my average FTE count isn't the same, the count as of the end of the year is the same. Thus, exception applies. Exception number 2. I let the person go for cause they sucked. I've tried to find a suitable replacement. And oh, nay, one does not exist. Just trying to have a little fun with it. Thanks for laughing, Gary. Except it is 4 exceptions. Exception number 3 is I tried to get the person to come back, but they said, no, I'm not coming back. I got to stay home. In that case, you're supposed to notify unemployment of this decision, and you're supposed to have all this documented that you try to get the person back. Couldn't find a suitable replacement, blah, 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 blah. So that's a lot like the I let the person go for cause scenario. And then the last exception is due to the pandemic, the position no longer exists. And, there's not a whole lot of guidance on that, but one would assume that the position no longer exists because your business is significantly suffering. So just remember that with the average FTE count, the only way that you're not applying for an exception is that the average numbers between both periods are equal. If they're not equal, you're falling into an exception and you're just debating which one is it. Woo! He nodded his head. Got it.
Man, I love that. I mean, that was taking me back to Sesame Street, like 1, the count, 2. The only thing is, I didn't hear the You're gonna have to do that on the next one. Good job.
Next time in Spanish.
All right, next one.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, that's about as far as I can go on Spanish. All right, next one. Regarding the tax deferral, everyone who makes over 104,000 can't defer, or the first 104,000 could be deferred, and everything above can't be deferred. Is that the case?
I don't know. Jack, do you know that one off? Is that one in front of you or top of mind? My assumption would be that it'd be only below 100, because I don't think the intent was to say, hey, people making $1 million a year get a pass on the first 100. So
yeah, I am not sure about that. I mean, I can see an equitable argument both ways. But I don't know if it is a matter of, well, you only fall into it because you reach a certain amount of income. The other thing I want to clarify too, and I just realized that, when I said what is being deferred, I threw in there under payroll tax, Social Security, and Medicare. It's only the Social Security part that is being deferred. In my understanding, it's not the Medicare part that's being deferred. So there's a bifurcation of the components of the payroll tax. At least that's what's proposed. And I understand too that all this stuff is proposed, right? And so does it stick? Again, what powers does he have right now, as chief executive, and because he controls? But I think, I don't know if he admitted this or not. I heard that he is at least of the understanding that there are some limitations on what he can do in the long term with respect to at least the forgiveness part of it. If he turns, he cannot be the one that turns a deferral into a complete forgiveness, at least.
All right. Well, this is a hot topic because a couple people have asked the same exact question in the same chronological sequence, which is good. So the question is, are we currently legally required to notify employees of this Social Security deferral?
That we don't know. I mean, that's why. I mean, it just came out on Friday, and that's why at least our trade organization, the ASCPA, asked for guidance on that specific question. Are we required to provide notice? Very similar to how we were required to provide notice about the FMLA paid leave if we're going to fall into that. So it's a good question that we don't know the answer to. Assuming that it sticks and nothing changes, you'd think that, the answer is likely we would be required to provide notice, just like anything else that comes out from the government.
Yeah, I think that if you think about who is the best messenger to get the message out, the entity that holds the money, if I can imagine, hey, would you like to see more dollars in your paycheck? Let me tell you how you might have that happen, kind of thing. But then also to prevent and make sure that employees understand that, again, it's not a raise, it's just you're punting something down the road. And even in some of the commentary, it is, well, you know, how is it reasonable to expect an employee, where is this magical money going to come from at the end of the day when it's time to repay? You know, it's okay. So, but you know, Adam, I really hadn't thought about it until you actually said it, which is because there's a choice. What happens to those people that decided to go ahead and pay that? Are they owed money now, further money by the government in order to get people on par with each other, meaning the money that they pay, their portion of the payroll tax, you know, back? And then who is going to collect that? Or who, you know, you know, what happens about getting that pay? Is that some sort of credit to 2020 taxes? I mean, I could think of a whole lot of issues that come up with that. So the other interesting thing that we kind of just go off on a tangent a little bit is that the extra $400, you know, it was 600, then they're talking about 200, now they're at 400. The interesting thing is the president's order says, well, $400, but we're only going to kick in 300. So states, you have to kick in 100. So 25% of that, it's on you, you know? And so I don't know how far that's going to go. It's not like the states have money sitting around to be able to fund a federally ordered stimulus package, even if it's just 25% of that total amount of the $400.
Yeah, not to get on the soapbox, but while I'm doing it, Gary, you probably want to hit me on mute here in a second because I'm going to piss some people off. I mean, the whole employer or employee having the election to get the money in their pocket, these are people that have jobs. I mean, that doesn't help the business owner at all. Zero, because I still have to pay the money to Gary. All right. Gary has a damn job. I'm paying him. So the only, so all this, I mean, arguably where this would be a benefit is if I had a massive hours reduction, which means I also have lower federal withholding, by the way, or I had a pay rate reduction, which would also have a lower withholding amount that I would get to put in my pocket anyway. But if I was pretty much status quo, like making 75 grand a year, and you know, I typically got a refund, all this is just an advance in my hillbilly savings account. I mean, it doesn't, what is that doing? It's not doing anything. I'll shut up now.
Hey, thank you. I couldn't find the mute button, so you're good. All right, this is from Bob. I'm still confused on payroll tax forgiveness. Is the Social Security tax only or the federal tax withheld only or both? I know that it does not apply to North Carolina state income tax.
Well, I mean, it's both, you know, subject to the bifurcation that Jack said earlier. So I mean, it's both. When you think about what is the employee withholding has three components that Gary is paying. You know, one is his income tax. The second is his portion of what he's paying into his Social Security savings account. And then the third is his Medicare, his version of Medicare payment. So it's two of those three.
All right, good. Good questions. Anybody else out there? We still have some time. If you have some questions, hit us. And if not, we'll be done early. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to hit us up and this has been a light day. We've probably been better about harassing each other than other people have been about harassing us. So that's actually good. We still have some banter going on. Oh, here we go. This is a comment. The unemployment does help for employers that cut their employees' pay and plan to repay it in the future. We reduced 25% of our employees' pay and participate in the work share program. So money in employees' pockets, and it does help us pay the money back. Okay. Comment.
Take that, Adam.
There you
Well,
go.
I'm sorry to whoever this was if I offend or offended you. You know, yeah, if you cut people's pay, unemployment does help because it augments the amount that they were making under the own. So I wasn't talking about unemployment. What I was talking about was the, the giving the employees the ability to have the federal withholding amount. I think I agree with you that the only people that it helps are the people who had their pay reduced. So if you were going to force people to take a pay cut to where they would then end up at the net check, same net check that they would have had before, but now they're having to keep their withholding. I suppose that's a strategy. I don't know if I'd advocate that or not, because if I were in other words, if I'm Gary, I'm basically going to Gary and I'm saying, all right, Gary, I pay you $100, you net 75. So here's what we're going to do. You need to opt into this, but I'm going to still give you the same 75, but I'm going to reduce your payroll and we ain't going to pay no taxes. I don't know, man. If I'm Gary, but that doesn't sound good. Other than you telling me, and by doing this, you get to keep your job. I don't know. I just think that seems. I mean, that seems like something where if that's a route you need to go, you just need to be real careful in the language to say, guys, look, like if that was me, what I would be doing is it would be two completely separate communication events. Communication event number one would be, guys, look, PPP running money's out, revenues haven't resumed, stimulus hasn't come, for us to, basically, if we all make a shared sacrifice, it helps everybody out. So everybody's going to need to take a cut of 15%, or maybe it's index based on however much you make, however you communicate that. I would communicate that. And in a completely separate notification, based on the executive order, blah, 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 the president issued a memorandum that said that you could elect because then, you're still making a Gary's choice. Like, you're not working out the deal. You're not saying, well, we're going to cut your pay, but to reduce the sting of that, you could do this. That seems fraught with, I don't know. Again, I'm normally pretty aggressive. I would be worried about that.
All right.
What do you think, Jack?
This is from Robert. Good to see you here, Robert. Have you heard, have any of you guys heard of anyone applying for and getting the Main Street lending program?
Still zero heroes on that one.
Have you heard anything, Jack?
No, I haven't. It's kind of like dying on the vine. I know it's still there, but yeah, I don't know what's going on with it.
Okay, well, there you go, Robert. And this is for you, Adam. Is it still your position that taxes are not going up in 2021, or are you going to do the backstroke?
I'll tell you what. I will. If taxes go up in 2021. Well, I'm getting kind of scared of this. Yeah, I'll shave my head, and I will shave my head, and I will shave my beard.
Oh,
wow, that's a bonus.
Wow, that is brave.
Lucky I have a lot of it, so it can grow back, I think. But
well,
yeah, I'll do both.
It's going to grow back, though.
Well, yeah, I did that once, and look at what happened. It's not good.
Before and after.
What you're promising. Okay, let me see what else here.
While you're doing that, I'll finish up. I alluded to a story, and the reason why I feel like it's a huge risk and I understand that people have to do what they have to do, and to have more dollars in their checkbook for necessities is important. But it's when an associate becomes an equity partner, you have a salary partner become an equity partner, you no longer, well, let me take that back. Let me do associate to partner. That you go from having those payroll taxes withdrawn as an employee to the self-employment tax regime where you're self-reporting, you're paying it quarterly, et cetera. So there have been on occasion, and this hasn't happened in recent years, but in years past, and luckily it possibly could have happened to me, but because I'm a business lawyer, I knew a little bit better, at least way back when. Not much, but a little bit more than like say my litigation partners who just became equity partners. And I remember when I found out that one of my newly minted equity partners, one of my brothers in arms of my class into the firm, said to me, basically maybe third quarter or fourth quarter, he's like, all this extra money is awesome. And I was like, what are you talking about? You know, because I feel like it was a demotion, because I feel like now you have to pay for your own stuff, you know, and yes, you get a deduct as a business expense, but it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, oh yeah, man, you know, spent some money on this and that. And I'm like, okay. And what'd you do about paying taxes? He's like, oh, I don't have to worry about that till next year, right? And I'm like, okay. I said, let's go in a conference room and have a little private discussion. And you need to go have a talk with first your CPA and then have a discussion with your wife about your economic reality in the next several months and what taxes you're going to owe and penalties and everything else. So yeah, I say that anecdotally to, again, I feel strongly that it's just, it's going to be difficult, I think, for people who say, yes, sign me up. I want more money in my paycheck because I need it. And then next year at some point, or whenever it is, the day of reckoning, to say, oh, by the way, all that money that we lent to you, because essentially it's like a loan at this point, interest-free loan, you got to pay it back or else. I mean, is that really fair to do versus saying, here's some more money, you know, and that kind of thing. So, you know, we'll see what happens.
I'm sorry, I'm in an offensive mode today, I guess. You want to see what a regime looks like where paying taxes is self-reported? Go to Greece. I mean, at the end of the day, that's what that system looks like, which is why we're a trust.
Yeah. The next question is actually a comment, and then I'm going to have a comment back. But the person who asked the question about the 2021 taxes going up said he just ordered some hair clippers on Amazon. And here's the thing, you're in luck, Adam, because all those hair clippers are coming in from China and they are not coming anytime soon. So, okay.
Woo!
Any other questions out there? Thanks for humoring us. It's always fun to have Adam and Jack on here. And it was really fun to see that Jack actually bought the memo of it's dress up day at work. That's actually kind of cool that we did that, but thank you for playing along, Jack.
You know, I'm easy pleaser.
Well, most of us will be back here next week. Actually, it's my 37th wedding anniversary next week. So I wanted to take off on Friday, and my wife's like, well, it's our anniversary on Thursday. And I couldn't tell her that I wanted to be on this thing and to delay it. I just thought, we aren't going to make 38 if we do that. So I will tee stuff up, but you guys will be on your own for answering questions. So I know that this will be recorded, so I'll be looking forward to watching it. So thanks again for everybody being on this thing. We will put this up later on this afternoon on the BGW CPA YouTube channel. Appreciate all of you guys. Stay healthy out there and stay safe and keep rocking the world. And we hope that everybody makes it through this thing well and actually stronger. So we appreciate all of you. Jack, again, thank you. Adam, thank you. Appreciate each and every one of you. Anything else out there? Last minute thoughts? All right. we are finished at 11:45 a.m. You guys have a great day and a great rest of the week.
Thank
See ya.
you.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, Gary.